very flat underneath. You can see we have an upturned vehicle over here. Depending on whether you get a base car or a Z51, so the up-level sports package, you actually get different aerodynamic treatment. The front end aero package is different. This car shows the huge rear spoiler that we need. That goes with the Z51 package. And unlike the 6th generation car, which just had tiny little wicker lips to balance the car for aerodynamic load front and rear, because we're getting so much downforce out of this front end configuration, we need a pretty aggressive spoiler on the back end to balance the car. The interior. We're really proud of the interior. In fact, we're already starting to win awards for the interior, even though the car's not even out yet. We started on all of the critical components around the interior, so starting with the steering wheel, we actually shrunk the steering wheel 10 millimeters in diameter, so it's a 360 millimeter steering wheel. Makes the whole car feel smaller, makes it feel more responsive. We also paid attention to everything between your fingertips and the tire patch. So the steering wheel, the steering column, the intermediate shaft, the rack, the way the rack attaches to the cradle, the connecting rod, the knuckle. If you look at that whole system all the way through, even the bearings, we stiffened that up so it's almost 5 times stiffer than the C6. So as you drive the car, you'll notice an extremely linear response between the steering wheel and what the car does. It is an electric power steering. I don't know if everybody heard that question. You almost can't source a hydraulic steering anymore. The whole world is going to electric power steering. We've paid a lot of attention to the feedback. We have a ZF gear. They're the best in the world at EPS. And we're using the latest software and techniques to try to optimize that feedback. If you look around the interior, you'll see all premium materials. You get real carbon, IP accents, real high quality leather, real aluminum, not just tiny little bits of it, but nice accent pieces around the interior. You see the 2 high-def screens fully integrated into the interior, and the seats are much improved from the 6th generation car. You can see the seat display over here, starting with a magnesium frame, gives the car a real connection to you as you drive it. I think you'll appreciate this. We benchmarked the best seats in the world, essentially copied the best features, and then also added the content that our customers expect, and came up with a great looking seat that also works really well. There's both a standard touring seat that's a good balance overall between comfort and lateral support. And then later this year, we'll be introducing the competition sport seat, where the bolsters are about an inch larger to give even better lateral support.
You know, this carbon fiber trim plate is a work of art. You'll see other cars that have carbon fiber, and what they have is tiny little accent pieces, little square patches here and there. This is all one piece that goes the whole width of the driver's portion of the cockpit, has very complicated shapes wrapping all the functional componentry, and it's real carbon fiber. It's beautiful to look at and very functional as well.
And you also have a carbon fiber hood.
Carbon fiber hood, and not in this car, but with the standard vehicle has a carbon fiber roof as well. This happens to have the transparent polycarbonate roof.
You know, Corvettes used to be made of fiberglass, obviously, and people, when they think of fiberglass, they think of boats. You know, they think of layering the layers, but that's nothing like this anymore, right?
It's gone so high tech, and the world is catching up to the Corvette in a lot of ways. Corvette has had carbon fiber on the street for 10 years. Now you hear almost every manufacturer talking about their carbon fiber plan, how they're going to bring it to mass market. Composites in general, with pressure on fuel economy and performance, wanting to make cars light as possible. The Corvette is a materials and technology flagship in that way.
When you talk about technology, there's a huge number of automotive technologies coming in throughout the world, and many of them are designed to take over the driving experience from the driver. We focused on technologies that enhance the driving experience. So we don't have a lot of nanny features that do the work for you. We didn't want to put cost or math in the vehicle for those. So it's a little different philosophy. than some other manufacturers. We focused on the basic driving experience. Didn't want to forget that. Many cars these days, new cars are becoming more and more homogenized. They seem much the same. We wanted to keep that Corvette character, but smooth it out in a lot of ways and just do everything focused on that driving experience. So there's a few technologies that you can really pay attention to today. There's a driver mode select that helps set up the whole vehicle for you. There's reconfigurable displays on the interior with 3 themes. There's a tire temperature system that actually senses how warm the tires are and communicates that to the rest of the vehicle. So all the stability controls, ABS and the like, traction control, they know whether the tires are cold, warm, or track hot, and can take advantage of the assumed traction that you would have around warm tires. So we have electronic limited slip differential. That's part of the Z51 package. That has a huge effect on the way the vehicle handles. We'll be able to demonstrate that to you today. When you have a car that actually has a rear weight bias and very sticky tires, being able to transfer torque back and forth by unlocking and locking the differential and make the car go from understeer to oversteer, and stabilize the vehicle to make it turn in better. There's a ton of things that it can do better. Then I forgot to mention active rev match, which when you're driving a manual transmission vehicle, be sure to operate that both on and off so you can experience that system. The driver mode select keys the vehicle into 5 modes, a weather mode, eco mode, tour, sport, or track, and then it's got a center button, much as we've had on C6 for stability and traction controls. And then you also have performance traction management, PTM, which we started on the ZR1, brought down to the Z06. Now it's part of the Z51 package. That driver mode selection, that one button in the center console, depending on the vehicle it's equipped, can control up to the way 12 different subsystems work. So I encourage you to go through the modes and see if you can sense all the changes. What you hear will change, the sound of the exhaust will change, the feel of the steering and the kickback on the steering, you'll notice the effort's very much different. You can see that there's a whole bunch of other different features and functions. So pretty much everything you feel, the way the car rides, what you hear in your ears, what you see in front of you, even the displays change configuration based on the mode that you have the vehicle in. Now you can mix and match to some extent if you want to go in through the menus, but the basic way that we have the car set up and the way it comes from the factory is all that stuff tied together. So you don't have all these confusing different, big rows of buttons turning stuff on and off. We try to integrate that into one control, and after you get used to, okay, it does this, well, okay, I like this steering from this one, but I'd rather have this from that one. After a while, you can customize it to your own personal preferences, but to start, we try to integrate that into the way that makes the most sense.
Functional.
All right, now we've got to talk about what's under the hood. Obviously, you stayed with the classic 6.2 liter displacement, and you stayed with the small block Chevy, right? Which is
small block V8,
V8 push rod, which is unusual. Everybody's going to overhead cams, and you guys stayed with the kind of the tried and true technology, which gives it that great exhaust note that we all.
Sounds great and it works great. We've done overhead cam engines before, even in the Corvette architecture with the Cadillac XLR. So we are ambidextrous in that way in General Motors. We know all about 2-valve engines, all about 4-valve engines, and there's something very special about the small block V8. It's extremely low mass. It's a very dense package. Even though the displacement looks large, the engine itself is tiny. You put it up against some relatively small displacement overhead cam engines, and it looks tiny in comparison. That's super important in a sports car. Yeah, low profile, so we can get the hood down. Narrow, relatively narrow, so we can use very large structural sections. You look at the hollow castings we have to attach our control arm. They're monstrous sections, and if we put a big-headed dual overhead cam engine in there, we'd have to skinny those things up. They'd be much less efficient. So the engine helps contribute to the efficiency of the vehicle in that way. And then the engine is really no excuses at 460 horsepower and 465 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, you've experienced it. It gets up and goes.
No, it's got an incredible power band.
And it's also hard to argue that an overhead cam engine would be more efficient. This thing coasts along in 4 cylinders. And
if you're doing the track work, you can get a dry pump. That's a dry sump.
Yes, if you get Z51, whether it's a manual or automatic, you get a dry sump engine along with all the other hardware required to harden the car for track use.
And speaking of that, what are the options to make it a little bit more track worthy? So you said there's a Z51 package, which gives you bigger tires, right? Bigger brakes,
Yes,
firmer.
forged wheels. All the suspension is specifically tuned, so springs, bar shocks, the normal
And it's not
content.
expensive. It's $2,800.
$2,800. You get brakes, you get brake cooling package, you get the ELSD, which is probably the most transforming chassis technology we have on the car. For a differential, they can go from fully open to almost locked, can change the way the car handles, make it more responsive, make it more stable, all without slowing you down. It's a great piece of technology. You see it adapted. You're starting to see it across high-performance vehicles across the industry. Everybody realizes how valuable it is. We're pretty proud about the way this is integrated. So it's not like we've got all these separate systems that are each doing different things at different times. The car comes across as very seamless. All you know is you're driving and the car seems like it's handling great. All these different systems are cutting in and coming out, working in coordination to give you that experience.
I mentioned the reconfigurable displays. We have a video over here that'll kind of walk through how those displays work. There's control on the steering wheel, a little four-directional, and a center button to select that basically walks you through the different menus. You can see we have a tour mode, and this, just to be clear, this is the 8-inch high-def screen that's right in the cluster. There's another 8-inch screen in the center stack, standard. That's not part of any option package. So the one in the cluster, that's what you see. You can see a tour mode that emphasizes vehicle information you might want cruising down the highway on a long trip. Then you have kind of a traditional tack and more sporty oriented. You can see what we call pocket gauges on either side. Even within those modes, it's customizable to what you want to see. And then we have a mode that was patterned after the cluster that we have in the C6R race car, with the tachometer that really emphasizes the high portion of the RPM band, so that this is on a track, that's where you're going to spend most of your time. And then you can see bar graph presentation of vehicle attributes. So, like I said, this stuff will all be tied together in the modes, or if you want to mix and match, if you like one particular display, you can lock that in and always have that as your display on every startup. We have a 7-speed manual transmission for the first time on Corvette. At a time when many manufacturers are abandoning manual transmissions as a whole, we decided to do the best one ever done. So we did a 7-speed manual transmission, and we have rev matching. This is both upshifts and downshifts. Now the default is a traditional car. People have asked, am I stuck with this rev matching thing? What if I want to heel toe on my own? No, when you key up the car, it's off. So it just drives like a traditional, if you can find one, 7-speed manual transmission. But if you want to have the engine match the revs, there's paddles on the steering wheel that toggle the system on and off. So as you try it, be sure and as you're driving, do that. I find myself actually, in a single drive, I'll be turning the system on and off at different times, just based on the situation once you get used to it. There's times where you find yourself, boy, I wish I could rev match, but it's kind of inconvenient. I'm in traffic, I'm not out on a track or anywhere. And you just hit the paddle, and it guarantees you the engine's going to be matched. So you might just turn it on for a single shift and then turn it back off again. So it really changes the way you drive. You can see the gear state indicator. We have that in the various displays. So that's which gear you're in. It changes from white to orange to indicate that you have rev matching on.
And really every single component in the cars, except for two, one of which we can see right here. This latch right here is a carryover part from the previous generation car. Just this back one, not these front ones. And then the air filter that filters the air coming into the passenger compartment here. It's a little pleated filter about this big. That's also carryover. But everything else is modified or wholly new on this vehicle.
So let's start from the outside, kind of the look of the car. It's obviously both evolutionary and in some ways revolutionary.
Yes.
What was the goal? What was kind of the design language that you set out for the C7?
The design language is one of performance, of course, and Corvettes have always been about performance. We knew the car was going to be roughly the same length, width, height, and proportions. Wheelbase is going to stay the same, engine is going to stay in the same place. So how do you make a car look different when those foundational things are carryover, or virtually the same? So what is the design language that separates this car? Because it does look very different than the previous generation car. Really came right off the racetrack. We took the functional attributes of the C6R Racer, the Le Mans Racer, and the ALMS race car, and we looked at what does the race team do to use the exterior design to improve the performance of the vehicle.
So
and you can see that right in the way this car is executed. You can see the functional hood opening, where it take the air through the radiator and up over the top. You can see the quarter vents, exactly like the race car has, to cool the diff and the trans. And because we had those design elements essentially as a new, fixed component of the car on the exterior, the whole rest of the surface could kind of evolve around those things. So basically taking race car strategies and integrating them into the exterior design in a seamless and elegant way.
ELSD, I mentioned this. This is a system that's completely transparent, but it's operating all the time as you drive. Every driving situation, it's not an on or off thing. It's continuously variable, so it can go make the differential almost completely open or almost completely locked, depending on the driving situation. So even as you brake and go into a single corner, it's doing a whole bunch of different things simultaneously and continuously. It's integrated with our stability control and PTM to improve performance. Traditional stability systems stabilize the car by hitting the brakes. So if the car starts to get loose, you hit the outside brake to bring you back in line. That's great to stabilize the vehicle, but also slows you down. This stabilizes the vehicle without slowing you down. It's almost imperceptible. It just makes the vehicle, especially on like a slalom course where you get transients, makes the vehicle feel incredibly stable.
And honestly, that was the go-to move. The obvious thing to do is round tail lights, then put these other grills in. The whole back of the car started to look like a bunch of polka dots, little dots around the back end. So we said, well, how do we integrate that to look a little more elegant? So we started surrounding the lights with a different shape. And after we did that, rounds just didn't look right for the whole rest of the design vocabulary for the rest of the car.
And you do have the four kind of fluted exhaust tips, which in a way are round. I'm trying to help you out here.
Yeah. All right, that's a bit of a stretch to say that we got four round exhaust tips, and that takes the place of the round elements.
I'm trying to be
on
helpful.
the back
Sorry.
end. I mean, those are basically like rocket thrusters. The size of those. I mean, that's just a powerful, jet engine exhaust coming out the back of the car. That was another design statement. We've got through fascia exhaust. We've got a decorative bezel, like a black chrome bezel around it, that is also a functional heat shield to keep the fascia from melting on the racetrack.
So, people ask me, what are you proud of on the Corvette? And I tell them, well, it's not a single thing. The current Corvette is extremely successful because it does a lot of things well. It's a great daily driver, it's a great long distance tour, it's comfortable, has lots of luggage room, gets great fuel economy, but it's also a great track vehicle. Some of our customers never even drive the car on the street, they trailer it straight to a track and just use it there. So it's got this great bandwidth of things that it can do. The thing that we're extremely proud of is we've come up with a car that expands that bandwidth everywhere. The seats are more supportive and more comfortable. It's more performance and more fuel economy. The car does a lot of things that are seemingly opposed, and that's what makes the car very appealing in the long run. I mentioned fuel economy. We're really proud of the new generation of the small block engine. It carries the 6.2 liter displacement. That's about all it carries over. It's as all new as the car is. So 460 horsepower, that's with the performance exhaust, 455 without, and about a 50 foot-pound increase in torque in the low end versus the previous standard engine. In fact, it's as much torque all the way up to about 4,700 RPM as the 7-liter out of the Z06 that we've been selling. So you'll feel it. Lots of low-end torque. The car feels really light, really responsive because of all that torque. But I tell people it's really, if you want it to be, it's really a 3.1 liter V4. The Corvette is uniquely suited to cylinder deactivation because it's so light and so aerodynamic. So it can run in 4 cylinders a lot of the time. As a 3.1 liter V4, it can produce 126 horsepower. The system works up to 3,000 RPM. Beyond that, we figure you're going to want all 8 cylinders. So it can produce 126 horsepower. So plenty of torque to pull you down the road. A Corvette takes about 12 horsepower to push down the road at 50 miles an hour. We say up to 90 miles an hour in V4. I think we had some journals yesterday that were over 100 in V4 mode, so this will pull the car along in cylinder deactivation at very high speed. So it'll spend a lot of time there. Depending on whether you're in eco mode or the other modes, you get more or less aggressive. In fact, on the manual transmission cars, this system only operates in the eco mode. The manual transmission is especially challenging application for cylinder deactivation because you have the whole drive line locked up. So we're letting people deactivate it if they'd like, and so it just operates in the eco mode. On the automatic transmission, it operates aggressively in eco, less aggressively in the other modes, and if you want to shut it off completely, you just operate the automatic with the paddles as a manual paddle shifting, and that turns it off as well.
Very functional as well.
And you also have a carbon fiber hood.
Carbon fiber hood, and not in this car, but with the standard vehicle has a carbon fiber roof as well. This happens to have the transparent polycarbonate roof.
You know, Corvettes used to be made of fiberglass, obviously, and people, when they think of fiberglass, they think of boats, they think of layering the layers, but that's nothing like this anymore, right?
It's gone so high tech, and the world is catching up to the Corvette in a lot of ways. Corvette has had carbon fiber on the street for 10 years. Now you hear almost every manufacturer talking about their carbon fiber plan, how they're going to bring it to mass market. Composites in general, with pressure on fuel economy and performance, wanting to make cars light as possible. The Corvette is a materials and technology flagship in that way, using aluminum, magnesium, but composites extensively, even from the very first car. The 1953 Corvette was an experiment in composites in a time when everybody, and for 40 years after that, everybody did metallic, primarily steel cars. Corvette was a composite vehicle. So we have basically pushed the industry on composites to a point where, as the pressures to take mass out of vehicle gets higher and higher, you're going to see composites, the applications come on more and more cars everywhere in the industry.
So we've announced our performance previously, 0 to 60 in 3.8. That doesn't matter if it's a manual or automatic. In fact, some of our best times have come with the automatic. The car just hooks up and goes. There's a kind of magical combination of low-end torque, the torque converter. We got a low inertia torque converter as part of the new automatic transmission, and the rear weight bias, the sticky Michelins. The car just hooks up and goes. It's really easy in an automatic to get very quick 0 to 60 times. Quarter mile, 12 flat at 119 miles an hour. 0 to 60 to 0 braking distance, 107 feet. Cornering 1.03 is the number that we published, and I think some of the long lead media have already published up to 1.08 based on their testing. They test on a larger diameter skid pad, which lets the aerodynamics come into play, plants the car even better than the small circle that we use. So some pretty impressive numbers in cornering. And then we've also published a VIR Grand Course lap of 252, which if you look at, say, Corvette or current drivers' Lightning lap, where they use that same course, you'll see that's in the upper echelon of performance cars, almost regardless of the price. Many of the cars you'll be driving today do have the Z51 performance package. Just wanted to make sure you understood what was in that. With the Z51, you get a dry sump oil control system for oil management. That's whether you get a manual or automatic. You get more aggressive ratios in the transmission, either the automatic or the manual. You get additional cooling. You get bigger brakes. You get bigger wheels, 1 inch larger diameter wheels, forged wheels. You get different tires specifically designed for that application. And I already mentioned the aerodynamic changes. So a lot comes with the Z51 package. The cost of that is $2,800. We think we have a good claim on the most fuel efficient, never mind all the other stuff I talked about that's great about the car, the performance and, just the way it looks and everything about it. We think we also have a claim for the most fuel efficient sports car on the market. We have our EPA numbers, so the label on the manual say 17 and 29. They don't let us test in eco mode. If they did, it would be 1730, so the Corvette would have a 30 mile per gallon label on it. I can tell you that Corvettes, unlike many other vehicles, you can actually get the fuel economy that's on the label. That's been true for a long time, and this car is no exception. Under ideal conditions, it's capable of astonishing fuel economy. I've driven a 25-mile segment back in Michigan at 38 miles per gallon, just cruising along at 63 miles an hour in 4-cylinder mode. So you can also consume a lot of fuel if you want, and you guys would probably be doing more than that today. But if you're just sitting back and going on a long distance trip, just put it in eco mode and set the cruise, and the car is capable of incredible fuel economy and incredible range. The fuel tank's actually bigger than the previous generation car, so you can go just a ridiculously long way. That people get in the car and drive it around for a while, and they say it doesn't use any gas. That the fuel gauge just stays on full. So we have some examples here. Corvette Stingray, 460 horsepower, 29 miles per gallon. Porsche is excellent at this. Porsche has extremely good efficiency. You know, they're designed in Europe where gas costs, what, $8-10 a gallon. You know, so efficiency is at a premium. They got their flat 6, 3.8 liter, 400 horsepower. So 60 horsepower less than our car, 27 miles per gallon. That's even with a DCT. So it's pretty impressive that we can get to 29. If you want more horsepower than 460, you know, you can look at a Jag, 495, but it's 23 miles per gallon. Audi R8, 525, a little more horsepower and far less fuel economy. So, and we're not picking the worst examples, we're picking the best examples. If you want really bad examples of performance, fuel economy balance, there's plenty of those to be seen. If you want to beat our 29 miles per gallon, you got to go to a Porsche Cayman. Again, Porsche is very good. 275 horsepower out of their 2.7 liter engine. There you get 30 miles per gallon, but you know, you're 200 horsepower shy where we are. And then a BMW, also known for good efficiency. They make a lot of hay out of being efficient vehicles. There you're going all the way down to a 4-cylinder engine to get 34 miles per gallon, 241 horsepower. So we're kind of in a unique space. I don't know if we can really make the claim we're the most, you know, somebody's going to say a Miata or so, you know, is more fuel efficient than you guys, but in terms of high performance sports cars, it's really a paradigm breaker of a vehicle.
And you don't have a round start button like everybody else.
No, it's a custom start button, and it's integrated into the shapes that we have here. Really, if you look, Ryan Vaughn, our interior designer, deserves a lot of credit for coming up with these shapes that are different but go well together and are still functional. You know, you can look at triangular switches here. You can look at the shape of the switches in the steering wheel. Each one designed to do the job it does in the place it needs to be, but also harmonizing with the shapes around it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. That was great. And thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
My pleasure.